band was another early influence on Gothic metal, taking the Gothic rock influence from bands like Bauhaus and Sue and the Banshees and incorporating it into their own music. Their radical blend of violent black metal and classical music was described as avant-garde and significantly impacted the development of European heavy metal. Christopher Johnson of Therion credits Celtic Frost's 1987 album Into the Pandemonium for playing a crucial role in the rise of the Gothic and symphonic wave of bands in the 1990s. He also notes that both his band Therion and Paradise Lost would not have sounded the same without the influence of Celtic Frost. Gothic rock. Gothic rock emerged from the post-punk movement in the 1980s, but by the late 1980s, the genre had split into various subgenres, with bands like The Cure, Sue, and the Banshees, and the Mission adding elements of pop and alternative to their sound, while others like the Sisters of Mercy, Fields of the Nephilim, and Christian Death shifted towards a heavier, sometimes metal-influenced style. The Sisters of Mercy were among the leading goth bands of the era, known for their slow, melancholic, and complex blend of metal and psychedelic sounds, often mixing in dance rhythms. They released 3 full-length albums, with their debut First and Last and Always coming out in 1985. Their final album, Vision Thing, was released in 1990, marking one of the earliest attempts to blend Gothic music with heavy metal. Fields of the Nephilim also released 3 studio albums before breaking up in 1991. However, they reunited, released additional albums, and have been recognized for their influence on the wave of metal bands in the early 2000s that incorporated Gothic elements into their music, particularly in their use of symphonic and keyboard sounds, as well as their fashion choices. According to AllMusic, goth metal first appeared in the early to mid-80s, with a focus on the Los Angeles death rock scene led by Christian Death. Christian Death is credited as the pioneers of American goth rock, but experienced a significant shift in their lineup in 1985 with the exit of their leader and founder, Ross Williams. Guitarist Vailakan took over and steered the band towards a more metal-focused sound. Notably, their 1988 album Sex and Drugs and Jesus Christ has been described by critic Steve Huey as heavy goth rock that borders on metal. Origins. The Peaceville 3. Gothic metal, as a genre, truly took shape in the early 1990s, particularly in the north of England, with 3 key bands, Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, and Anathema, being hailed as the heart and soul of this movement. These bands are also credited as pioneers in the death doom subgenre, highlighting the origins of Gothic metal from this style. All 3 were initially signed to Peaceville Records in the early 1990s and have since been referred to as the Peaceville 3. Their beginnings were in the highly intense death metal scene, yet they were also inspired by the superb, grim sound of Dead Can Dance, as noted by Paradise Lost's lead singer, Nick Holmes. In 1988, Paradise Lost emerged as the pioneers in the doomed death metal scene, hailing from Halifax, England. Their debut release, Lost Paradise, was introduced in 1990, marking a pivotal moment in the genre. This album set the standard for doomed death metal with its relentless, low-tuned, and sorrowful anthems, featuring intense, death metal-inspired vocals, showcasing the band's potential and ambition beyond their early, amateur status. The band was rapidly advancing, and their second album, Gothic, released in 1991, showcased a departure from their early sound, adopting a more dynamic and energetic style. This album introduced a refined guitar sound, a more selective use of keyboards, and the incorporation of female vocals, adding depth to their dark, heavy sound. Gothic achieved significant success across Europe, especially in Germany, and is now celebrated as a cornerstone of the Gothic metal genre. Their 1992 release, Shades of God, further expanded their musical horizons, while their 1993 album Icon marked a significant shift with the innovative use of synthesized strings, percussion, piano, and angelic female vocals. This experimentation marked a new chapter for the band. By 1995, Paradise Lost's music had established itself as a bridge between the harsh, oppressive sound of goth rock and the intense, heavy metal of their earlier works. Their 5 albums have been lauded as a pioneering collection that laid the groundwork for the Gothic metal movement, influencing numerous bands in the genre. In 1990, My Dying Bride was established in Bradford, Their debut EP, Symphonaire Infernus et Spera Imperium, gained significant attention upon its 1991 debut. Shortly after, in the same year, they released their debut full-length album, As the Flower Withers. This album received widespread praise from critics, revolutionizing the doom music scene. They expanded their band by adding a violinist for their second album, Turn Loose the Swans, which was considered a groundbreaking release. This album marked a shift towards a darker, more romantic sound in their doom music. Aaron Stainthorpe, the band's vocalist, describes their shift towards this style. We knew that when Celtic Frost disappeared and turned into a glam rock band, we knew there was a market there for this sort of over-the-top avant-garde band, someone who were doing something a bit weird and unusual. Paradise Lost were doing similarish kind of things, but I don't think they had this more romantic edge. We definitely worked for that gothic appeal, and I'm not really sure why. In 1995, the band The Angel and the Dark River introduced a new approach to their music by abandoning Stainthorpe's aggressive death growl in favor of a more refined vocal style. This change was embraced by the rest of the band, who also moved away from their death metal roots, incorporating delicate violins and keyboards to deepen their gothic doom metal sound. Although their music became more experimental, it still maintained its dark and atmospheric quality. Formed in 1990, Anathema from Liverpool gained recognition with their EP The Crestfallen in 1992, which was praised for its intense emotional doom death sound. This sound was carried over into their debut full-length album, Serenades, which was considered their most traditional doom-inspired work. The band's blend of vulnerability and power attracted a dedicated following. Their 1994 EP Pentecost 3, despite its length, was also recognized as a full-length album. In 1995, the EP was released, along with the departure of Darren White. Vincent Kavanagh took over on vocals for their next album, The Silent Enigma, which was seen as a pivotal moment in the band's evolution, with comparisons to Pink Floyd and a broader appeal to a wider audience. This shift also led to a loss of support from die-hard doom fans. Similar to My Dying Bride, Anathema moved away from their traditional death metal sound, exploring new territories with their 1996 album Eternity, which featured expansive, sorrowful, and orchestral tracks, showcasing their most innovative work to date. Despite these changes, Anathema's signature elements of deep sadness and intensity have remained constant. Other pioneers. In 1990, in North America, Peter Steele came together to form Type O Negative from the remnants of his previous thrash metal band, Carnivore. Their first album, Slow, Deep and Hard, released in 1991, showcased their pursuit of a melodramatic goth rock style characterized by lengthy songs built on basic riffs, theatrical screaming vocals, organ sounds that sounded like they were in a church, and occasional mechanical noises. The album The Origin of the Feces was released in 1992, but it was their third album, Bloody Kisses, in 1993, that marked their breakthrough moment. AllMusic Steve Hewitt described the album as having a twistedly affectionate mockery of goth rock norms and lyrics that delightfully dive into goth cliches, sex, death, Christianity, vampires, more sex, and death. The album has sold nearly 1 million copies in the United States, a remarkable achievement that forced the goth community to take notice of the group. Type O Negative's music is known for its use of down-tuned, fuzzy guitars, and Peter Steele's deep baritone vocals, which are both trademarks of the band. Steele is a large, sarcastic, self-deprecating frontman whose dry, dark humor and dark themes challenge the traditional image of the goth subculture. The band has been recognized as a trailblazer in the genre, with critic Greg Proto of AllMusic stating in a 2007 review of their album Dead Again that before Type O Negative, there was really no such thing as goth metal. In North America, brothers Jeff and Eric Clayton launched their band, Savior Machine, in 1989. Known for their blend of gothic and symphonic metal, as well as art rock. The band released their initial album in 1993. In 1988, alongside the creation of Savior Machine, another notable band in the early days of gothic metal emerged from Sweden, known as Tiamat. Their debut album, Sumerian Cry, was released in 1990 and was characterized by quasi-ambitious death metal. Their subsequent album, Clouds marked a pivotal moment for the band as they explored a more melodic and atmospheric direction, which significantly resonated with the European metal scene, particularly admired for their atmospheric doom soundscapes enriched with keyboards. Their album Wild Honey, released in 1994, was considered a significant artistic and commercial milestone, showcasing a refined sound that was warmly received by the metal community for its brooding, Gothic-themed atmosphere. This album featured a dynamic mix of soft acoustic guitar and whispers, angelic harmonies, alongside powerful riffs and death metal groans, creating a stark contrast. Moving forward, Tiamat delved deeper into the Gothic genre, with Johan Edlund choosing to forego traditional metal growls in favor of a more ethereal vocal style. Edlund's unique voice has been likened to that of Sisters of Mercy's Andrew Eldritch, alongside musical nods to Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. The band is celebrated for their contribution to the most overtly Gothic output from Scandinavia.